The time is just gone 8:55 a.m. and we continue with the weekly edition of Crime Talk. Chairperson of eThekwini Secure, Imtiaz Syed, with us once again. Imtiaz, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, United.
Yes, wonderful you're able to join us as always, Imtiaz. Let's talk about what we need to talk about: communities and councillors. Now, I think many of us don't even know who our councillors are, Imtiaz.
Absolutely. When it comes down to the crux of it, at the end of the day, in the trajectory of our country at the moment, we'd see that there's many things that are lacking, and all we do is really complain about it instead of organizing ourselves and understanding how do we bring change to those things. Now, ultimately, and I know maybe we should at some point change the name of this conversation that we have weekly because it's now differing into different aspects. So with that, we really need to get an understanding of how local government works in communities by far. Now, we also need to be emphasize this thing that local government plays a pivotal role in service delivery to the people directly. We've got three tiers of government: national, provincial, and local. But people actually get services from local government through your local councillor. Now, in any municipality, we run two sets of systems. One is you vote for your ward councillor. So when you go to elections, you see that there's two ballots. One is you voting for your councillor, who you want your councillor to be. The other one is you voting for a party that you might believe in, who might get a PR seat within council. So not necessarily your ward councillor, but someone that is a public representative on your behalf. So it's sort of a fail-safe. Now, just to emphasize on this properly, you have your ward councillor, but within your ward, you also have maybe up to about 3 or 4 PR councillors, meaning that they are public representatives. There were some votes that came from them, and they have opted to be PR councillors in those particular wards. We need to also understand what they do. They do the exact same thing that a councillor can do. The councillors have access to municipality just like a PR councillor. So start using your PR councillors. If you voted for a smaller party or whatever it is, and if those individuals or that party has seats in council, whether it's one or two, they have access to municipality like any other councillor, and you should be using them to get your service delivery done. If you fail with your councillor, or not even if you fail with your councillor, if you're more comfortable to work with one another person, that's absolutely fine by you. But the reason for this and this topic, is to speak to how many of us really know who our councillors are. How many of us are active enough in communities? We've come through a space of crime fighting. We understand that climate. We're saying now that activism cannot just be speaking to crime. It needs to speak to service delivery in its total form. So if you have potholes, if you have all of those things, or realistically speaking, in an ideal world, those things are supposed to be taken care of them by themselves, right? But they don't happen today. And therefore, we see a great need for communities to start mobilizing themselves into small little groupings, even if it's a grouping that's within a street, to say that we're an organized community, we're going to deal with our issues. Who do we speak to? So you speak to your ward councillor, you speak to your PR councillors. Now, this is not a fight between you and your councillor. It's actually about you getting your message across to them and them relaying that message to municipality and then giving you feedback as to when and how things can be done. So that's basically where it comes from.
Yes. Now, just looking at ward councillors, and obviously, we know that a lot of dynamics actually play out at council level as well. So
Correct.
again, looking at your ward councillor, who does he represent? Which political party he represents? And I think this is something of a concern with people when they get in touch with their councillors. And we know what is actually playing out in many of the councillors, and that is the reason sometimes you see there is a reluctance for people to engage with councillors because they know if there is an issue, possibly nothing may actually come out of it because of the political shenanigans that play out.
Correct. What we see in council every single day is that national politics starts playing out in local government, and councillors that sometimes, I say sometimes again, that sit in council don't really have the interest of the people at heart, and therefore they sit there. It's a job. They're there representing their party, and they're there to play a political game. You get those. I'm not saying no. However, there are some good councillors, and it's left to communities by far and large to start emphasizing that the councillor has a job to do. And that job is to ensure that the ward develops. Just to put it in a nutshell, the ward needs to develop. You cannot be in a period where we have local government, we have all of these different facilities available to us, but yet through communication by our councillors and through communication from the communities to the councillors, we're not clear and decisive about our wants and needs as communities. So some communities may develop differently to others based on the fact that the councillors and the community are not in sync with exactly what the community needs. And that's a cause for concern. Now, when we speak about council in itself, we must remember that a councillor has a job to do in terms of ward development in his ward, right? And then in council, they may be sitting in committees that speaks to different portfolios. So it could be governance and HR, economic development, human settlements and infrastructure, just by the way, is one of the committees I sit in, and that speaks to 75% of the operational budget goes through that committee. It's all your trade services, basically everything you really see, which is your roads, your engineering, your housing, your electricity, your water, your sanitation, your DSW, all of those things. It comes out of that committee. Now, if your council is not sitting in those committees, how do they posture those things for you? It's through their leadership and through the whips of their committees that sit in those particular committees. It's about communication. So a councillor might be sitting in, for example, economic development and be a ward councillor, but yet they need something to go through trade services and get an understanding of what's happening with regard to service delivery in the area. They need to speak to their party reps that sit on that committee to get things done, if you understand what I mean. So we need to be clear and very, very understanding of how the political climate works as community, and thereafter know how to communicate with our councillors. And with all due respect, the officials of the city don't only deal with councillors. You have a right to start reporting things to municipality on your own. And yes, we've got all of these e-services issues and all of that. But if you're an organized community, you can take it a step further. Just like how a councillor might report to the head of a department or head of Metro Police or whatever, if you organize and you form yourself, for example, into a ratepayers association, and you're very decisive in your wants and needs, and you're not just complaining complacently, then you can take your problems directly to municipality without speaking to the councillor. And that's something that we need to really, really speak to.
Well, that actually ties in with what we spoke about last week in terms of ratepayers
Absolutely.
associations, and I can actually see how all of this actually fits together, and obviously, the missing pieces in the puzzle to complete the picture. But Imtiaz, as always, Jazakallah, and as you mentioned, possibly we need to change this from crime talk to something else. I'm sure we will find an appropriate name. For now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imtiaz Syed joining us, and we are heading for the news. Zahid Jedwood is standing by.